while those were the first words that God said in the Old Testament, they were not the last words that God said. Jesus himself says a lot about how we are to treat other people. He says a lot about abuse. He says a lot about the fatherless. He says a lot about the way that we're supposed to interact and engage with each other. And as a kid that grew up in a somewhat abusive home, I struggled with this idea of what it means to honor the father and mother, because I don't have contact with my father and mother. It was an abusive situation where, in order to have health for me and my own children and my own family, we had to separate. And so I've always struggled with that. How do I honor my father and my mother when I'm not in relationship with them? Well, the ultimate way to honor your father and mother is to pray that God would get a hold of their hearts and what needs healed in them would get healed. Now, honoring your father and mother has been manipulated by a lot of churches, a lot of teaching, a lot of abusive parents to say, well, you're supposed to just do what I say. You're supposed to honor me. That's not the truth. The truth is if they were living in obedience to God, there would be no problem with honoring the father and the mother. But because they're not living in obedience to God, their hearts are not surrendered to God, the thing that we need to do is separate ourselves from our abuse. And as parents, we have a responsibility to protect our own children from the abuse of our parents. And so the way that we honor them is from afar. The way we honor them is we surrender them to God. And I just want to speak that over you in case you have struggled with that the way I struggled with it, and give you this opportunity to recognize that there's some freedom there. You don't have to have guilt about not, quote unquote, honoring your father and mother if it was an abusive situation. The way you honor them is by surrendering them to the Lord.